Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. It's really going to hurt you, darling. I'm sorry, but I fell in love with another man, and I'm leaving you to be with him. Oh shit. She ruined a great evening. The first warm, clear evening after the springtime transfer. The sky is clear, the beer is cold, and all my business is done. I was hoping to sit outside and watch the sunset and then admire the stars while drinking a cool beer and enjoying the love of my life. Then I hoped to drag her into the house and make love for a few hours, and then fall asleep in a sticky, sweaty mess of sheets. I enjoyed the beef and light hops after the beer I drank on this beautiful March evening. You didn't do anything, dear. I just fell in love with a younger man. I think I'm lucky to have the charm to attract someone with the youthful frenzy and bed stamina that I once enjoyed with you, and I hope so. It was assumed that tonight it would be possible to see Mars to the left and slightly down from the sun when it touches the horizon in the west. That would be very cool. After all the years we've spent together, I don't take anything from the home environment. Of course, I packed my clothes and personal belongings, and I hope that you will keep my family heirlooms and someday give them to the children. I'm not sure Johnny has a place for these things, since his house is so small. Of course, I keep my personal savings and pension, and since you still have the house, I want to take most of the joint savings so that Johnny and I can start living together. He hasn't graduated from college yet, so I'm going to have to support both of us for a while. That's all I need, and I think it would be a fair solution for our divorce. Please read these papers to the end. This is a divorce agreement, and once you sign it, none of us can walk away from it. Artie, our lawyer, insisted that it be so. His cute little assistant is here to notarize our signatures, and then she will take them to him so that he will take care of the fastest registration. Artie assured me that in just a month or two the divorce would be final, but we could immediately start living separately as single people. So if you don't mind. That's right. How beautifully the eagles soar in the sky. I know that a couple of these majestic birds nest near the river in the valley, and from time to time they fly here. Look at them. Eagles choose a mate for life. I wish I could be an eagle and fly in circles around the sun with my true love. All you can do is hunt game and circle above the ground. Two birds in love with each other. Right here, where Artie left the cute little arrow stickers. Oh, but before you sign, he sent you a letter and wanted you to read it first. Here. The eagle will never give his partner legal documents during the setting sun. I sighed and opened the letter. Dude, I'm sorry about this, man, but you were both my clients, and she came to me first. So by law, I had to take up her case. In fact, according to the law, I should have sent her to an independent lawyer and refused to represent any of you. But her story was so strange, and she was so insistent that I represent your interests, that I agreed. We've been best friends since kindergarten, and know that there's no way I'm going to let her or anyone else do anything bad to you. I'm sure you'll laugh when you read this agreement. It's really in your best interest. Just never let her know that I pushed her into this agreement on purpose. Oh, and I'm sorry I couldn't warn you. She attacked me this morning. No matter what, I promised her that I would not warn you in advance so that she could avoid an unpleasant scene. But, dude, I promise I've come up with this for you in the right legal terms. Just remember, about the best interests. Believe me, you don't even have to read this agreement. Just sign it in the places marked with cute little pink arrows, her words, I swear, and then have her send me the papers. I've sent Jen, who will certify your signatures, and the job will be done. When she leaves, you can read the papers in peace. We'll go through them later. You'll laugh your head off. Believe me, you'll like it. Yours sincerely, Artie. Now you owe me a beer. I'll come get him tomorrow night. Jen is staying to make sure you're okay. She thinks you'll need something special to warm your bed tonight. PPPS, burn this letter when you read it. Otherwise, it will cause me to have problems due to a conflict of interest. I signed the agreement. Thank you, dear. I understand that this is a complete surprise for you, but I felt that our breakup would be the best solution. I know you're going to feel broken about all this, and I originally planned to stay with you tonight for one last night and say goodbye in a way that honors all the good times we've shared over the last 20 years. And Johnny said it would be stupid of me to end our marriage completely and not even kiss you goodbye. I think he's right, but I want to be fair to you and at least let you decide how you want to spend our first night unmarried. Jen came on stage and winked at me. God, she was gorgeous. She recently became Artie's assistant. Smart, with a sharp legal mind. Superbly tanned. Her silky smooth legs stretched for miles under a tight pencil skirt that defied business norms governing hem height. Suddenly I realized that the girl was really planning to stay with me. Maybe all those flirtatious moments in Artie's office had an impact on her 20-something erotic fantasy world. Look at her bending over the table to put her official seal next to my signature. Oh yes, Jen, I would be very glad if you would warm my bed tonight. I want to thank you for the years we have lived together. You were a wonderful husband and, oh, I just can't resist lace on such a juicy area of skin. And for being so compliant at a difficult time in your life. I'm lost. She looks up and looks at me. Oh my God. I could drown in those deep pools of brown eyes that she calls eyes. And that smile. It's too strong for. I have a boner. Right here, now. While my wife is ranting about how well she knows I'm going to miss her. Remembering the good times and not dwelling on. She sees it. There's a bump on my jeans. And slowly licks his lips. It's time for you to make a choice. Do you want to spend the night with me tonight for the last time? Or do you want me to leave? Oh yeah. I need to make a decision. Nice. How do I tell her to leave without making it look like I'm worried? I see you're speechless. I understand that this is unexpected and shocking, but is Jen sliding her hand up the inside of her thigh? She holds out her hand in. Shit. She's wearing lace stockings and garters. I see it so clearly. To hell with everything. She pulls the small black wedge of panties aside and plunges 2 fingers into herself. And yes, everything is clean-shaven. What a pleasure after so many years of overgrown pubic jungle behind white cotton granny panties. So what did you decide? My wife keeps pestering me for an answer, and I really can't say anything. I think he's too upset, Jen suggested. I think you're right that you cut everything clean and just leave. He doesn't look too good, so I'm going to stay for a while and make sure he's okay. I'll give the documents to Artie tomorrow morning. Mars. Here it is. A harbinger of war, north of the setting sun. The stars begin to appear, and the sun turns red in its last moments before disappearing into the night and leaving the sky to the moon and Mars. My wife turned to leave, but then rushed back to me. To my back, which I turned towards her. Jen stepped between us and stopped her. I have to kiss him goodbye. I have to hug him again. I didn't turn around. Heaven was putting on a show just for me, and it would be rude of me to interrupt it. If he had made a choice, he would have told you. Now pull yourself together and think about him. He obviously doesn't want to make a scene by breaking down in front of you, so he turned away. Make it easier for him. Leave. You have a new life ahead of you, so move on and let him move on too. Go to your man, your true love, your Romeo. Find your new happiness with him. Start your new life with him as... What is his major in college? He is getting a diploma in ancient languages. Johnny is fluent in Greek, Aramaic, and Latin and is learning to read Sanskrit. Oh, that's wonderful. I am sure that this set of skills is very much in demand for people who need a translator in Greece, Palestine, San Diego, and Latvia. Jen had a way of making sarcastic jokes without people knowing it. And what does your husband do? He's a master architect. He was a wonderful breadwinner and took care of each of our children. The wife fell silent. Suddenly, there was a contrast between me and her young lover, and not in his favor. I especially liked Jen's comment about San Diego and Latvia. I'm sure there are Latvian teachers who would disagree with the idea of Latin as the language of Latvia, and who, damn it, don't give a damn about reading Sanskrit. Except maybe young Sanskrit teenagers looking for Sanskrit editions of Playboy and hot novels. Well, that's great, Jen continued, leading my wife to her exit from my life through the front door. I bet that one successful architect was a wonderful breadwinner, but left you in need of male attention for many nights alone, while he himself was constantly working, going on business trips, or meeting with clients. But now it's all over. Now you have an exciting young stallion who will entertain you with Latin poetry, Sanskrit prose, and biblical parables in the original Greek and Aramaic. You might even be able to go on a trip and visit all these exotic places in the world where Greek is still spoken. For example, in Greece and, well, Greece. Oh, and maybe parts of Macedonia, Cyprus, and lots of Oriental-style eateries and restaurants. And now let's take you to your boy, who is waiting so patiently in the car. There was a pause at the door. I heard a sob and realized that it was my ex-wife crying. I thought he was going to fight for me. He didn't say a word. He was just looking at the sky. He didn't even look at me when he signed the papers. He didn't cry. He didn't even blink an eye. It's like he wants me to leave. Yes, he wants you to leave. He wants you to be happy. This is what you want, and he gives it to you. Thank God he made it so easy for you. I want to say goodbye. I need to kiss him goodbye. I need to end this marriage. I have to close it. Honey, you closed it. You left without robbing him financially. You left his life untouched with everything that was in it. It's such a huge gift, but you're still here. Now finish your breakup by leaving quietly. No tears. I heard footsteps on the stairs and then a car driving away. The lock of the front door clicked, and it became quiet. Then I heard Jin's soft footsteps and felt her arms wrap around me, pulling the blanket over both of us. You are the luckiest person in the world. My pants slipped to the floor. With Jin's help, I pulled my feet out of my flip-flops and pants. You were going to serve her last night, and today she came to Artie herself. What happened? If I had handed her the papers last night, I would have given her half of everything and paid her an allowance. I've spent months gathering evidence. He did everything he could to save his marriage and then treated her very fairly instead of burning the ground under her. But she showed up at your place and asked you to prepare a simple divorce, in which she would take nothing but her clothes if I signed the papers without any trouble. And she agreed that, despite the fact that the divorce will take months, it becomes final immediately after signing the agreement. We both immediately recognize each other's independence and break off all marital relations as soon as she leaves our house. I smiled. Her hands skillfully gave me a sense of beauty. I felt better when she turned me around and dragged me to the table behind her. I asked you what happened. You've been flirting with me for months now. Do you want me to talk about the woman who became my ex-wife 5 minutes ago? Jin's eyes rolled back, and she tilted her head incredibly far back. Yeah, okay, I whispered in her ear. She was acting strangely last night. She was very nervous. I know her well. I can read her moods. She had something important to tell me. Very significant. She was worried, not knowing where to start. This time, penetrating Jin's hot body, I confidently completed the dive with circular movements. Her breathing quickened and she moaned again. Not yet, Jin, it's too early. I knew she was cheating on me. I knew she had something to say. I had the divorce papers prepared. I felt the girl's nails dig into my shoulders, and for a second she tensed and stopped breathing. A small but definitely overwhelming climax. So I decided to wait and see what happens. I gave her a little more time before this weekend. All I needed was today. I put up with your insinuations, your shameless flirting, and your little inconspicuous pranks as soon as I looked in your direction. It's time to stop these games and start dancing. And we danced. She sang, and when she got tired, I carried her to my bed. We danced a little more before sleep engulfed us. The next morning I woke up at 10 in the morning and found myself lying in bed alone, and there was a note on the dresser. I took a little time to check my wife's belongings and found that all her clothes and personal belongings were indeed gone. I made myself an omelet for breakfast and then went out to the backyard and found a beautiful morning outside. I read the note from Jin that I found. Good morning, lover. You were great last night. I left because I'm not comfortable sleeping with someone all night. Yes, I know. Girls should be nice and love men the next morning. Trust me, baby, the temptation was very strong. But I'm not ready to settle down yet. I'm only 28. When I come to that, I hope I can find a guy like you to settle down with. Or maybe you'll still be free. In the meantime, don't feel lonely. Call me if you want to spend one of the evenings with me again, even if it's just to dance. Jin, if I said I wasn't worried about it, I'd be lying. But I'm a realist. Jin was too young for me. She had her whole life ahead of her. She's going to want children, and I'm completely done with this chapter in my story. So I turned the page on this little meeting. I would dance again, but probably not with Jin anymore. I finally read the divorce agreement that Artie had prepared for my wife and grinned. I've made a lot of money during my marriage, and I've kept it all. House, cars, furniture, art objects, bank accounts, investments, my pension and 100% of my salary. No alimony. My ex-wife left her keys and wedding rings on the dresser and completely disappeared from my life. Until 1600 hours on the same day, I got a call from the hospital. My ex was severely beaten by her boyfriend. I gave them the information about our insurance over the phone and called my children and former relatives to inform them of her misfortune. It was hard to tell them that she was in pain. It was even harder to tell them that her boyfriend beat her up the very night she left me for him. They were all terrified, and strangely enough, more because of the betrayal of their mother/daughter than because of her injuries, which they all attributed to some kind of karmic reaction of the universe. Of course, they immediately took me in their stride. My children went to college far away, and Katie's parents lived in Florida. None of them could come here for at least a week. The children begged me not to leave their mother alone in the hospital for a long time. "Please, Dad, you can't leave her." Her parents also begged me to take care of her until they arrived. "We know she doesn't deserve this, but she needs a family, and you're all she has." I went to her. I didn't sit with her for long. I made sure to be in the room when her doctor came. I arranged with a social worker for her discharge from the hospital and subsequent care until recovery. I rented a specialized bed and everything else she might need. I helped her with all the daily chores that a person needs in a hospital so that she doesn't have to wait for a nurse. I even went to her new place, packed up her things, and took them to my house. I haven't kissed her once. I wasn't fawning over her. I didn't tell her that I loved her. And I certainly didn't talk to her about what she did or what the future holds for us. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks. Then she ended up in my house on the ground floor in the living room, which I turned into her temporary bedroom until she recovered. All the main bedrooms were upstairs, but Katie couldn't occupy any of them in this state. The only problem with its arrangement was that there was no full-fledged bathroom on the ground floor. So I was forced to see my ex-wife much more often than I expected after she put an end to my hitherto happy life. I did my job well. I took care of her recovery, even her most physical needs. Our children? They came to visit their mother for the weekend and then returned to college. Our son successfully found an opportunity to do a summer internship near his college and did not plan to return home until the next Thanksgiving. Our daughter decided to spend the summer and fall semester abroad and work throughout the time until she can help. Like, "Dad, please take care of Mom until I can help you." Katie's parents were just as helpful. They never showed up. "It's just too hard for us to come to the north. We just can't stand the cold anymore. Nevertheless, we appreciate that you are doing the right thing. So believe me, we are very grateful to you." Torture. Serve her food. Wash her with a sponge in the bathroom. At the same time, listen to the endless nonsense that poured out of her mouth. It's funny that none of the friends she was chatting with on the phone thought to check on the patient. Nevertheless, I was treated daily to verbatim retellings of their endless, meaningless conversations. She complained. She whined. She was grinning. She never thanked me, and the worst part was that she never apologized for the choice she made, which is what put us in such a difficult position. For the first time, I began to perceive the image of my wife as a core on a convict's leg. I loved my wife very much until I found out about her infidelity. I really enjoyed every minute we spent together. Although I was no longer married to her, I still felt affection for her, and it made me angry. I saw every step in her healing process as a step towards the end of my enslavement. When the cast was removed from her hands, I was able to just leave her a tray of food, and I no longer had to feed her myself. Then the cast on her right ankle disappeared, and she was able to move to a wheelchair on her own, which freed me from the humiliation of satisfying her very needs. This event caused her to comment, which, frankly, I did not expect at all. "Good. That means I'll be able to return to the master bedroom with you soon." I looked at her grinning face while kneeling at her feet, where I was trimming my toenails, which had grown into hideously long claws while locked in their prison in a cast. "Oh, darling, while you're in this position, could you shave my leg at the same time? She's been in this terrible cast for so long. It just looks unsightly. I would like to be attractive everywhere for my return to family life." I finished cutting the burr off the last nail and filed the edge off before answering her. "No, that's not going to happen. I'd like to vacate the living room, so maybe soon you can move into the guest bedroom, and it will be possible to return this hospital bed to the rental company. And although your leg does look unsightly, I'm not going to shave it or do anything else for you that isn't absolutely necessary for your recovery. As for your return to family life, I think you'll need to find a new husband first. If you've forgotten, I remember well that we recently signed papers that you declared irrevocable. If you're thinking about going back to your ex, you'll have to explain a lot to him first. You'll have to help him understand past events well enough to make him believe that they can't happen again. Then you will need to convince him that marriage with you is what a sane man should really strive for. To be honest, I don't think you have a good chance. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Our divorce never became final. Any of us can cancel it at any time until then. And you take such good care of me that I know you still love me. You were so attentive and gentle. You even worked from home, and clients came here with any cases that required your decision. You did this so that I wouldn't have to be alone. I know I was a bitch and I whined too much. I appreciate everything you've done, and I'll make it up to you. I called Artie this morning and left a message saying I was withdrawing my divorce petition. I had to explain to her the meaning of the divorce petition, which she then handed to me, and which I immediately signed. In the agreement, she stated that her claims to any common property did not exist, and agreed that for all intents and purposes we could act as legally divorced until the divorce was finalized. I explained that if I had provided her with a place of residence in the bedroom, especially in mine, she could have restored her rights to live in my house. But since she was placed exclusively in temporary premises with rented hospital furniture, I could easily challenge her ability to consider this her legal place of residence. If she intends to move into the guest bedroom and stay there for a while, she will have a legally executed lease agreement in which she is listed as a tenant. Then I explained to her that her agreement, as she insisted, was filed immediately and, with the consent of all parties, was reviewed in an expedited manner. I received the final decision on the divorce in the mail 2 weeks ago, a week after she was discharged from the hospital. Actually, I thought she knew about it, but then I realized. Her mail must have been transferred to another address, as it was not delivered here. Her copy of the decision was probably in a bundle of mail at another address. My ex's head was sinking lower and lower. The grin disappeared from her face. I suspected that during these weeks of recovery, she was experiencing different but pleasing emotions. From the feeling of knowing that she got away with throwing dust in her eyes and dodging a divorce, to the feeling of relief that she would be able to get out of the marital Armageddon caused by an immature boy, for whom her attractiveness as a partner was limited to bed experience and the recovery time of an inexperienced lover with minimal losses. I gently reminded her that there was nothing left of her in this house, and that she herself had given up her family life, her home, and the love of a devoted husband. I've never seen her look so depressed that she couldn't even find the words. But I had the words, and I tried to say them as gently as I could. Katie, I didn't even have time to deal with my own feelings about this. You were attacked the day after you left me. For the last month and a half, I have been courting a woman who rejected me after I had loved her all my life. I did this out of respect for our past and out of respect for the requests of our children and your parents to give you the care that they could not provide. Now I need you to move into your own place as soon as you can, so that I can finally mourn the death of the wonderful life we once shared, and then move on to what the future holds for me. The tears in the corners of my eyes were quite real as I turned and left her room. Over the next 2 weeks, she tried to talk to me, but I politely declined every such request. Eventually, the cast was removed from her other leg, which had suffered the most severe of her orthopedic injuries. Her internal injuries were healed even before her forced stay in the hospital ended. Now, all she had to deal with was a slight limp. She had a couple of friends who came and walked with her. She managed to get into the salon for a haircut and manicure/pedicure. And finally, the night came on the eve of the day she planned to move out from me. She came to me and asked me to listen to her once, and that she would never bother me again. I gave in to her. She wove a story about her grief. They say it's because she suffered from aging. She liked the attention from a group of young people whom she sometimes saw in a cafe frequented by girls from her office. She fell under the spell of a young man who, in addition to his attractive appearance and natural charm, was able to charm her with his stories about ancient great thinkers and their great ideas. She liked his reasoning about what if, and she fell in love with his impeccable manners. What she didn't understand was his lack of worldly common sense. She was shocked the day after she left me when he was furious that she had come to him practically penniless. When she shared with him her thoughts that worldly wealth ultimately meant nothing, he used physical violence against her. His bullying escalated until it escalated into outright beatings. And then she acutely realized that he was only after her for her money. She didn't believe at all that he was spewing about the evils of money and the need to adapt to the rat race. When she woke up in the hospital and saw that her husband had taken care of her recovery, she finally realized her mistake. She had thrown away the love of a real man for the shadow of a man who was too shallow, unable to truly love a woman. She left real life in order to find Shangri-La, which did not exist. As the days passed, she gradually convinced herself that I had survived her betrayal and was taking care of her in a way that only a loving husband can take care of. In the 2 weeks since she told me she couldn't wait to get back to my bedroom, she realized how much she was wrong at every turn. I'm sorry. I hope that someday you will be able to forgive me. Although I don't think I can forgive myself, I found a small furnished apartment. It remains to sign the lease agreement and I can move in there at least tomorrow. Or, if you want, I can move into a guest room and sign a lease while living here as your tenant. Or, if you want, I can move and live with mom and dad in Florida. It would be a cheap way for me to start over, and you'd never have to see me again. Well, except for the events in our children's lives. I'll do as you want. I owe you a lot. I'm not a monster. She stayed in my house for another month until she finally got back on her feet. I went with her when she testified against her lover. He was found guilty of attempted murder and aggravated assault and sent to jail. Well, he will have plenty of opportunities to study Sanskrit, while the state will provide him with a bed, clothes, and 3 shitty meals a day. When she was ready to move out, I handed her the keys to a new townhouse apartment just a mile from my house, fully furnished, with a stocked pantry and wine rack. Her Audi key was also attached to the keychain. I never wanted my wife to get beaten up and lose such a big chunk of her life. She was still the mother of my children, and I wanted her to be comfortable. The children were delighted, although I reproached them for not helping me overcome our family crisis. I informed them that now each of them will have to pay their own college living expenses. It was time for them to take responsibility for their lives, and it was obvious from the stinginess of their reactions that my children would have to learn a lot. I also informed the children that their education would be fully paid for by me, but no more. They will have to work to pay the rent and feed themselves, and buy themselves a car if they are ready. It was a shock, but they reluctantly agreed as soon as they realized that there was no other choice. Their mother was broke after the divorce, and she could no longer influence my financial or parental decisions. This was especially painful for my children, who used their mother to get their way when I refused them. It was much easier to deal with his wife's relatives. They just stopped being my relatives. I made it clear to them that although I would always remain friendly, they were no longer family to me. They left me alone with their sick daughter during our crisis, simply because the climate was colder here. The next time they need help or advice from a family member, they can either turn to another one or wait until I move to the same warm climate as they have in Miami. Unlikely. I love skiing too much. Artie and I continued to be golf partners, drinking buddies, and companions at football and baseball games. I often received invitations to dinner with him and his wife. I never brought Jen to them. You see, even though she was an amazing lover, had a gorgeous smile and a killer body, she had a huge flaw. She was the second woman to leave me in 12 hours. Unheard of. This made her the perfect embodiment of the negative qualities of both my wife and her lover. Shallow, fickle, misleading, exploitative, empty, selfish, and heartless. She became the epitome of everything that was wrong the night my marriage broke up. I wasn't rude to her. I'm realistic enough to realize that it wasn't her fault. She was guilty only by association. But I'm too proud to ever go back to the woman who rejected my feelings, and that was Jen. So no, Jen, there won't be any new dancing. I have lived on, and there is still not a single love in my life. I am like a bee flying from one beautiful flower to another and pollinating many of them. It's hard work, but someone has to do it, and there are a lot of colors that want to check that. They need some pollen in their lives. I can live with it,